Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into a story that's about so much more than just a royal headline. It's really about how a centuries-old institution is dealing with a very modern and very human challenge: King Charles III's cancer diagnosis. So, let's get right into it.
Really, what happens? It's a huge question, right? Because it's not just a personal health issue, it's a real test of the country's stability. And it gives us this fascinating look at a massive shift in how the monarchy talks to us. We're going to break it all down. And hey, if you find this kind of deep dive interesting, do me a quick favor and hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. It would be amazing.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the diagnosis itself and the kind of surprising way it was even discovered. Then, we'll get into the royal backup plan that kicks in when the monarch is sick. After that, we'll see how the king's team made some choices that totally broke with tradition, and we'll finish up with the powerful public message he's sending because of all this. All right, first up, let's rewind to the exact moment the news broke. An announcement that, suddenly made a king's health feel like a surprisingly human story. So this was the official word from Buckingham Palace. And what's really striking here is just how direct it is. For an institution that's famous for being private, this was, it was unusually open. The palace went on to confirm he was starting treatment and would be postponing his public duties, but would still be doing his state business behind the scenes. Now, to really get why this hit so hard, you just have to look at this one number. 1 in 2 people in the UK will probably face a cancer diagnosis at some point in their life. So all of a sudden, this wasn't just some royal headline, it was a deeply relatable story for millions and millions of families. Okay, so how did they even find it in the first place? This is where the story takes a pretty unexpected medical turn. The key thing to understand here is this medical term, an incidental finding. And really, all that means is that the doctors weren't looking for cancer at all. They literally stumbled upon it by chance while they were treating the king for something completely different. So here's basically how it all went down. The king went to the hospital for a really common procedure for an enlarged prostate. And while he was there, the doctors noticed something else, a separate issue of concern. So they ran more tests, and that's when they confirmed it was a form of cancer. So in a weird way, that routine procedure is what led to the early detection of something way more serious. And that right there explains why the tone from officials was so optimistic right from the get-go. From the very beginning, the message, even from the Prime Minister, was hopeful. Because it was found incidentally, it was caught early, and that, as we all know, is absolutely critical for successful treatment. Okay, so with the king stepping back from his public duties, a huge constitutional question comes up. Who's minding the store? Who keeps the show on the road? Is there like a royal backup plan? Yup, there absolutely is. They're called Counsellors of State. And you can kind of think of them as the monarchy's official substitute players. When the king or queen is temporarily unable to do their job, at least 2 of these counselors can be appointed to step in and take over. But, and this is a big but, there are some serious limits to their powers. They can handle the day-to-day stuff, signing documents, going to meetings. What they absolutely cannot do are the core constitutional things. The biggest decisions, like dissolving parliament or appointing a new prime minister, stay with the king and the king alone. So who's actually on this team? Well, by law, the list includes the monarch's spouse, so Queen Camilla, and then the next 4 adults in the line of succession. But here's the catch. In practice, the palace has made it clear that only working members of the royal family will actually get the call to serve. All right, so moving on from the medical side and all the royal rules, let's talk about the PR strategy. Because the way this news was shared with the world, that was no accident. It was a very, very conscious choice. This little snippet from that first announcement is so important. The king himself chose to go public, and he did it for 2 specific reasons. First, to stop rumors and control the story himself. And second, to use his own situation to hopefully help other people affected by cancer. But at the same time, they made another really specific choice. They decided not to say what type of cancer it is. And according to palace sources, the thinking there was that this would let the king connect with the biggest number of people affected by the disease, instead of just focusing on one kind. It was a strategy of controlled transparency. And you can see just how committed he was to this idea with this one little story. Apparently, his staff had arranged for him to travel pretty discreetly during his treatment. But the king insisted on using the huge, very visible state Bentley. He wanted the public to see him, to feel reassured, and to help normalize what he was going through. You know, this level of openness might not seem like a big deal, but for the royal family, it is huge. To really get why, you have to see how much it just completely breaks from royal tradition.
I mean, for hundreds of years, the health of a king or queen was basically a state secret. Just look at King George VI, Charles's grandfather. He had a lung removed because he was so sick, but the public was never told how serious it was. In fact, some reports say that even the king himself wasn't told the full truth about his own condition.
Okay, now just flash forward to today. King Charles is doing the exact opposite. He is using his personal diagnosis to actually promote public awareness. We're literally watching a fundamental shift from a culture of secrecy to one of, well, strategic openness.
And look, this isn't just some small tweak to their PR policy. Experts are straight up calling it a historic turning point. This new era of openness, which is being led by King Charles, and we're also seeing it with the Princess of Wales, is totally transforming how the modern monarchy talks about health with all of us.
And that brings us to our final piece of the puzzle, how the king is now actively using this personal battle to send a really powerful public message. And we saw this happen in a really direct way not too long ago. In a pre-recorded video, the king actually appeared as part of a major cancer awareness campaign. It was a rare, personal, and very direct public health message from the monarch himself. And during that message, he pointed to a number that he said really, truly troubles him deeply. 9 million people in the UK are not up to date on their cancer screenings. He called it 9 million opportunities for early diagnosis being missed. And that just shows you why this matters to him. It's about the health of the whole country, not just his own.
And that's his core message, right there. Early diagnosis quite simply saves lives. It connects his own personal story, that lucky early find, to a clear call to action for everybody. And on top of that, he also gave a really wonderful and hopeful update on his own health. He announced that his treatment has gone so well that his schedule can actually be reduced as he moves into what he's calling a precautionary phase. It's just a great piece of news that ties right back to the power of that early diagnosis he's been championing. So where does this all leave us? We've seen a king choose openness over secrecy to turn a personal crisis into a public service. But the big question is this just a King Charles thing, a reflection of him as a person, or is this a permanent change? Is this new transparency going to become the new tradition?
So what do you guys think? Is this the new future for the monarchy? I'd love to know your thoughts, so let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for hanging out and digging into this with me. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world. I'll see you next time.